Hello there, everybody. Welcome back again to the Kraken Smite League, this time in the Deep Sea Division. It's Judas Priestley today, joined by Zats. And Zats, we are in the endgame. It is Food Fighters versus Fallen Angels. It is the semifinals of the Deep Sea Division. What are we expecting to see today?
Absolutely. It is time to lay all your cards on the table. There's no reason to hide any more strats. They should all come out now. And frankly, I'm expecting some niche, interesting, unexpected picks to come out. The meta at the moment is just in a bonkers state. There's lots of variations in terms of builds. I think in the solo lane, we're seeing lots more sustain and damage coming out of that role, and that comes all with all the 9.5 revert. There's lots of things that I'm looking at there, and I'm expecting some crazy picks too. I've never seen more Kumbhakana jungle in my life, and I am praying that we are not blessed with that today, as exciting as it would be, because I hate it. But yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's look forward no longer and let's get straight to it. Let's head on over to picks and bans for game number 1. We have Food Fighters, the number 2 seed for this playoff, versus Fallen Angels, the number 3 seed. And like we've said, this is semifinals, but it is still a best of 3. You don't have a lot of room to maneuver, and I think that's why you might say, if you've got a secret strat, now's the time to pull it out.
Mm-hmm. And I always harp on about that quite a lot, but I do think it's important, at this level, to have something in the bag. The more preparation and homework you do, the bigger advantage you have in these kind of sets. Because again, people, yes, you may scrim quite a lot with other players in this division and other teams, of course, but the reality is you will always know less about these players than if you're playing, in the SPL, for example. So that's always a big advantage to be taken for me as we get into these first bans and the first pick.
Lots of the bands of the same sort of ilk, right? It's either these very tanky frontliners with huge game-changing ultimates, or it's these backliners that just do a good job of being very, very hard to kill. So not too surprising to see the Yu Huang and Charybdis gone away. It's maybe a little bit surprising to see the Nuwa banned out, but we've seen a little bit of Nuwa creeping in lately, so it's maybe not that big of a shock. But of the same ilk as everyone in the ban phase at the moment, we see Food Fighters drafting a Camazotz, because Camazotz does everything you need to get out safely, but also just does a hell of a lot of damage at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a lot of opportunity to dive in, pump out a load of damage, and then can hop up into the air. And that's incredibly valuable, because by the time that the Battle of Hell ultimate is finished, you've got your cooldowns back up, you've got tons of sustain already, and if you build more, that's going to make you very difficult to deal with anyway. So the mobility, the sustain, the damage, it makes Camazotz a very potent jungler. Could also be flexed into the solo lane, as could this Lancelot. I think these are actually two of the top assassins right now. I'm not going to put them in any particular role, because we've seen Lancelot played in the solo lane. Certainly has great potential in the jungle as well. But again, the key, and I mentioned earlier about in the solo lane specifically, I think we're seeing solo lane steer slightly away from these really tanky, almost backline supporty warriors, as we see one locked in, actually. And then we have these more aggressive, hybrid, high sustain, lots of mobility solo laners. And there's another one, just as I call it. It's like I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Sometimes it just lands for you. And Odin in particular, a god that we've seen a lot of strength around lately, actually somewhat more so in the jungle than the solo lane.
Definitely.
So keep an eye out for that. There's obviously this potential, like you said, with the Camazotz in the solo and Odin in the jungle. To be fair, it kind of works either way into this Fallen Angels draft, but Fallen Angels, while somewhat susceptible to this Odin cage, have the double horsies from Lancelot and Hachiman. By the way, I would have loved to see a Guan Yu and a Chiron. My dreams just came to life for a moment there. But anyway, despite there being some susceptibility to this Odin pick, you'd still be hard-pressed to call the Lancelot and Hachiman bad, even into this Odin.
Yeah, absolutely. They're mobile enough, and the damage is high enough for it still to be a problem. And there's we talk about follow-up for an Odin cage. I do think it's highly dependent on where you place it, and you did mention it, you alluded to it earlier. Odin in the solo lane is really low pressure, takes a long time to get online, and really your biggest value in the late game is just getting a good cage and being a bit tanky. Whereas in other roles, in jungle and possibly in support, you have that ability to use the cage nice and early, and then follow-up isn't so relevant, because people are more immobile, people are more squishy, and that's when actually it makes it a lot easier for your Tiamat and for your Camazotz to go in and follow up. So there's still lots of flex potential in both these drafts. Let's see which way they go to heading into the second phase.
Reducing Agni picked up by Fallen Angels, and I think what we are seeing here is both of these two teams literally picking from the top of the tree of the tier list of these gods. Like the general style, especially for these mid lane mages, and evidenced by the gods who've been banned out, it's these pretty safe mid laners who are very good at specifically taking down tanks. Anyone who can lock a tank in place and then just start blowing them up from there can do a very good job. So Agni perfectly placed to do that. But we've seen an Anhur locked in from the food fighters, and somehow Kumbhakana has made it all the way through to potentially the last pick of the team, and food fighters don't go for it. Is that surprising to you?
I actually quite like this Ganesh. I think the fact that Kumba obviously cripples with his 2 now, with his Groggy Strike, that's powerful enough in itself, and it's been like that for a while, I believe, even before his buff.
Yeah.
It is impactful into some of these picks, but I would say not so much, particularly into the Wukong and the Lancelot. Silence is much more potent, I think, much more beneficial for keeping your backline alive. So I actually quite like this Ganesh. I think it offers a lot. I always enjoy seeing this god. It has decent enough early game, decent setup, good around objectives, and particularly strong going into the late game. I'm actually a big fan of this. I almost prefer it. In fact, I do, because I hate them.
I mean, that's fair enough. It does do, like what you said, there's that plenty to protect the backline for food fighters. Now, they are relatively safe with this Tiamat and the Anhur, but the thing that Ganesh will do better than pretty much every other support available is just stymie aggression. And if you are Fallen Angels, I don't really see how you get in on this team safely. Like you say, if you jump in with Wukong or Lancelot, a Ganesh being there makes things a lot more difficult. You combine that with the potential of an Odin or a Camazotz just wreaking havoc on your backline. I think food fighters have really played a blinder here. Like Fallen Angels, their draft is like good, but man, food fighters just feel so much stronger.
Yeah, I do think the Lancelot is going to be the biggest problem, because obviously if you're on that horse, you don't care about the Ganesh Silence. Now, if you're off the horse, then it's much more impactful. And so it's going to come down to the support of the food fighters, making sure that you're keeping tabs on this Lancelot, because everyone else can be dealt with. I think Anhur and Tiamat as a backline can deal with, Sun Wukong or whatever. I don't think these landfalls, they're going to be tough to land, if you'll pardon the pun, into the Anhur, into the Tiamat. It's generally, you have enough time to react, and these backlines are immobile enough not to worry about that. But interesting this Maui pick. It feels like they've got a lot of decent picks for the Fallen Angels, but the food fighters, it feels like their draft is a bit more cohesive. They've got big circles and they've got big cages and walls to lock people in and allow you to do the damage. So their draft is a little bit more cohesive, but it's honestly really tough to call at this stage.
Will big circles be enough? Let's find out as we get on into game number 1 between food fighters and Fallen Angels. Like we said, Deep Sea semi-final matchup here. It is just a best of 3, so everything has to come out right away. And I mean, right now, it's pretty much as we would have expected. I'm maybe a little bit surprised to see the Odin in solo instead of jungle, but is this maybe the most consistent and reliable way overall to place these gods?
The problem is I really don't like Odin solo. I just think it's going to struggle in the early game. You do have the Bluestone Pendant, which I think is actually a decent option. It's going to help you with your early clear, which again I think you're really going to need, because we'd expect the Sun Wukong to have the early pressure. It looks like Wukong's also going a slightly more damage-based build, and already. We'll see how Starry does in the lane, but I'm a little bit concerned about that. And it also means that you're going to have to rotate a bit more early out of solo lane to be impactful, I think, because in the later stages of the game, Odin Cage is considerably less useful, because basically backlines just have more attack speed to kill that cage, if nothing else. So we need to see slightly early rotations.
Woo! Zareth jumping in despite the low health bar, but it might pay off for them, because Zexy Zealot is caught, is isolated, and Griff wants more. Griff gets more. Double kill despite the death, and wow, what a fast start for food fighters.
Madness. And it's really tough to fight into this 2v2 of Camazotz and Tiamat. Tiamat just has more abilities, and Camazotz is one of the better early game junglers in terms of the base damage, and the fact is, so far, Gator Griff has hit all the Camazotz skill shots, and that's key, isn't it? As we see a bit of action in this duo lane. No surprise to see that the Hachima, the lane, has won pressure. That's not surprising at all. We see another blinker. There's more action happening in the mid lane. Zealot could be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, Zealot in trouble. Dashes are down, uses the knockup. Zareth jumping in again to go get them, and that is that. Zareth now picking up a kill for themselves, and this mid versus jungle matchup. Hold on. Solo lane goes as you would have expected. Yeah, right now, mid lane, big problems for Fallen Angels. Maybe they can start to work through this solo lane.
Yeah, and that is what it's going to have to be about. It's tough to die twice early on this Lancelot. Lancelot doesn't have the best in terms of base damage, when compared to something like a Camazotz. And his damage is very short range as well. If you do want that bit of range, you have to use your horse, basically, to use that first ability on the horse. That's your only real range. And what it actually means is even just clearing mid-wave with your mid laner at this early stage of the game is actually pretty bad for you. And generally, you want to avoid fighting that 2v2 for as long as possible. Now, it's already too late for that. Zealot has died twice, and Camazotz is on the board, Tiamat is on the board. That needs to be avoided at all costs. And now the key for me is Zealot needs to keep control of their jungle as much as possible. Because if I'm Gator Griff, I think I've casted Gator Griff enough. I would expect lots of aggressive plays into the enemy jungle, looking for invaders onto these tiki camps. That's what I'm expecting to see, and I'd be very surprised if we don't see that from a Camazotz, who is, again, very proficient at doing that.
Early purple buff invade for Fallen Angels. They're going to commit heavily for it, but Griff is right on scene, right on cue. Bugle Wizard now, it is just retreat mode. Zealot actually goes in. Bugle Wizard will fall to Zareth, that mid laner. Rotation making a big impact there. And Griff, not done at all. Knows they can kill Zexy Zealot. They're slow, just so powerful. My goodness, what a outstanding start for the Food Fighters.
And it's worth mentioning that Gator Griff rushed Blackthorn Hammer, which is not something you see every day out of the jungle, but I actually really, really like it, because once again, base damage is high. You can get a bit of health, a bit of mana, a bit more power as well, and it's just such a stat-efficient item. It's pretty cheap, and it also means that you perhaps have a bit more health than anyone is expecting at this stage of the game, and that's the key. No one's expecting you to be as tanky as you are, and maybe that's something they didn't notice. Or if they did, they certainly weren't expecting the same amount of damage coming out. But I think that's more the fact that Gator Griff is 4-1 and has a big level lead, and will be doing lots of damage whatever you build. So in some ways it's a gamble to build like that, but if you get this kind of lead, then buying these sort of hybrid items feel really, really good, more so than in any other situation. So that's something that needs to be watched very, very carefully. We haven't seen many forays into the enemy jungle as of yet. There's frankly been too much fighting for that to happen. But I would expect to see that soon. And if you look on the other side, Zexy Zealot doesn't even have finished the Jotun's Wrath yet, and is really, really far behind. That's a concern for me. I've already talked about that. It's a big lead already at 5 minutes for the Food Fighters, and it is going to come down to, can they utilize this 2-level lead in solo? Can they transition that into helping out in the jungle when these invaders inevitably come? I keep saying that. Maybe they won't happen, but it looks like they're going to turn it into an early Bull Demon. Nice and efficient from the Food Fighters, which we have seen from them before. They're very good at cleaning up the map, taking out all these neutral objectives, and doing them quickly and efficiently on the timer that they're up. So I like that. They're extending their lead. It's been really, really positive from them so far.
So what we are seeing is Gator Griff on a Camazotz, which is more than capable of just taking over a game as they've done so far, right? Like now this blue buff under pressure for Twinkle Toes will manage to be secured by Twinkle Toes. So happy there that they will at least get that. I was going to say, what do they have to do to shut down Griff? And maybe this is the right play. Just start taking the fight to them. Now the Bat Out of Hell should get Griff out alive, but maybe that Blackthorn Hammerzat's not making Griff quite as tanky as they might have thought.
No, obviously there's no prots quite yet, and early prots would have prevented a lot of that. But the health did matter there, and always had the Bat Out of Hell. So I think Gator Griff never really that concerned. But you know, it was encouraging to see that they had that amount of damage. They also defended their blue buff. I wonder if Twinkletoes is maxing the Master's Will too, because it was a surprising amount of damage to secure that. But okay, 2 points in it. But yeah, nice on the defensive there, and maybe that'll dissuade Gator Griff from in future, and actually it might slow the game down just enough for the Fallen Angels, because that's kind of what they need right now. They need time. You know, Dual Lane hasn't really rotated as of yet. Obviously, the Dual Lane and the Fallen Angels have both taken spill as well. We see aggression. The stun doesn't come out though onto Tova.
Stun doesn't come out, the Impale does, and puts Alcrady in some danger. Big damage as well from the Desert Fury. The landfall only gets the purification beads. Overall, that's a win for Tova, unless Zexy Zealot can do something about it. Shows up behind, swoops in, gets a kill for Alcrady, and Zexy Zealot gets out alive too. That's just a fantastic window that the Fallen Angels have found for themselves.
Yeah, very good. As long as they don't take any more spills, they've actually all stopped their backs, and Gator is on the way. They need to be very careful. They don't want to take any more spills. He's turned around.
Oh, going for it. And now leaps out. And actually gets caught by the Masterful Fisherman. Alcrady there, 2 kills on this Hachiman. All of a sudden, Zats, the tone of this game has changed quite drastically.
Yeah, I think maybe a bit of indecision there from Gato Griff. Maybe the fact that there were 3 fairly low health bars kind of got caught in 3 mines, I guess. But went for the dive, didn't actually have the ult available. I think, you know, that completely changes that fight if the Battle is available. It's a really long cooldown on that ultimate, and I think it was nerfed a long time ago, and it actually is one of the longest in the game, I think, and you need points in that ult to reduce that cooldown. Helenu's going to get aggressed on here. Lots of members on the way, but gets to remove obstacles to dash on out of there. And surely you don't contest. Surely you don't steal this.
Wow, drops the Dynamic Pillars to contest. Not sure who got that one just yet. Let's keep an eye on if anyone pleads a one. It did go the way of Fallen Angels, it seems, so that's at least a win for them, getting a couple of cooldowns off the board. There was a reaction there from Food Fighters, maybe not quite in time, especially for the way that Helenu was playing, but I mean, it's just signs that both these teams not afraid of each other.
Yeah, absolutely, and it feels like there's respect from both teams, but they're also willing to be aggressive and try and exploit any weaknesses that they think there might be. And then that's quite refreshing to see, actually, because, again, these are 2 highly rated teams. They're very close to each other in terms of overall standings, as it were. And actually, we see possibly a bit of regression. That horse infuriates me every time I see it. But a good impale, but Tova Messer's under pressure here.
Under some pressure, maybe the pressure turns on to Helenu instead. Alcrady here, a ton of damage from this Hachiman. You can't silence out a bow, and there's a double horse attack coming in, and Zexy's not the one to pick up the kill. Reaper's come over as well, just to play defender, and a bit faster to these engagements have the Fallen Angels been on this left-hand side. It's clearly a method that they want to play through. They got punished for it early, but they managed to just put it together these last couple of times. Now Bugle Wizard wants to continue the aggression onto Griff as well, but Zareth and Griff, this mid lane duo, have done quite well so far. It's maybe the only thing now for Food Fighters that's looking that good.
Yeah, because it does feel like Tova Messer has been the focus for the Fallen Angels, and you know that will give space to Zarzith, and Gato in a way has had a bit of space, and you know is farming decently well. But again, we talked about maybe early invades. It's happened almost the opposite way. You know, we've seen aggression onto, as we said, Tova Messer's purple buff consistently. That's obviously what they've chosen to target. They've largely ignored this side of the map where the Bull Demon is, and they're not giving this up free, but I'm not sure if they'll be able to get it in time. As a Ravenward flies out, there could be more fighting after the fact.
Birds come a-flying. Twinkletoes is one of them. Helenu locks themselves in the Dharmic Pillars, and that's enough to keep them safe for the time being. Zexy Zealot wants to give chase to Griff, but Griff is out of there. Similarly out is Starry, and it seems like it's just a battle for territory. Twinkle Toes can't catch with the Tiger Stun. Zexy Zealot dashing forward and wants to get involved. Helenu again, the target, but instead the Wrath falls onto Zexy Zealot, turned around on by Starry there. Twinkle Toes, though, around from the backside. 3 members, relatively low health, but there's not a whole lot of damage here. The landfall comes in, big onto Griff, had all the damage they needed. Oh, but the healing perfectly timed from Griff. Now Twinkle Toes needs to find the Somersault Cloud and does. Helenu now again aggressed onto the cat shall chase, and the Masters will this Ganesh down, and that is a good fight for Fallen Angels.
Yeah, and it started off not so well. The cage came out, and Zexy Zealot got taken down early, and we talked about where they might be prioritizing the Fallen Angels. Perhaps that's the reason they're ignoring solo lane. Their solo lane's been very comfortable, and Odin Cage, as we said, is more of a factor in the early game. It was certainly a factor there, but actually, once that bat out of hell had been used from Gator Griffith, the fight turned around. We saw a big landfall. Stun is beat out by Tova Mesa. This is a proper 1v1.
Proper 1v1. The Desert Fury will close that distance, and Tova Mesa picking up a solo kill there. Alcaridi way overconfident in that matchup, and well, that's what Anher can do to you, just turns it around very quickly. Twinkle Toes actually still on the rotation, up for this beacon. Zareth in some danger, but should get out to safety. Now what can Griff do? Looping around the left-hand side. Twinkle Toes still here, brawling it out here, as just rotated faster than Starry. Bugle Wizard giving chase. Helenu gets targeted, but this Ganesh, very hard to lock down. Zexy Zealot will manage to do so, and Griff forced into that bat out of hell, and this beacon should go the way of Fallen Angels. Starry on the scene, but Starry too late to the scene.
Yeah, and probably shouldn't have made this rotation. I mean, you do have backup on the way. Zarzif is still here and actually has full HP, has come back from base, but Starry's taking a decent amount of poke here to try and defend a beacon, what is in essentially a 1v4. Probably better to remain in your lane. If you're not able to match the initial rotation from some Wukong, I say rotation, Twinkle Toes was just there for the last 2 minutes, so not really a rotation that could be matched. So maybe you stay in your lane, you try and get a bit of farm, because again, this Odin does need to go online a little bit in the later stages of the game, whereas Twinkle Toes is very much online now. Fully stacked Soul Eater, has the shield of... I've lost it. What's it called?
Shield of the Phoenix.
Thank you, production. Has lots of sustain and damage online already, and is very much going to be a factor. And I'd really like seeing this. Another art expended, and Tova Mesa has got the shots on these Desert Furies, has got the read on Alcariti, and that's twice now we've seen a solo kill. And you could see why they were trying to focus out this on her. Maybe it wasn't enough, because now Tova Mesa is a level up, 2 kills on the board. Starting to stack as well. Yep. This is going to be tough to deal with, actually, this on her. The longer this goes on, and the less time that Alcariti has to farm, the more it feels like this hatch is going to fall off, and this on her is just going to be swinging at whoever dies on them.
Yeah, it's the crucial mistake that Alcariti made to get aggressive onto Tova Mesa when you really didn't need to, right? You didn't need to make that fight happen, and you're just paying the price long term. I'd just like to point out, Starry is not constantly holding Gungnir. Odin is just stuck that way at the moment. So Zexy Zealot, though, giving chase onto Zareth. Twinkle Toes on top as well. This jungle solo combo now matched up with Reaper on the Agni. Zareth living for as long as they possibly can, but it does come to an end now. Look at this Odin Cage fight. It's an absolute brawl, but Zexy Zealot finds himself locked in another box, and that will be the Dharmic Pillars taking them out. Griff, low health. Bugle Wizard wants to give chase. There's the landfall. Only connects with Starry, but you will take that secondary prize and a couple of laugh spams just to rub salt into the wound there from Bugle Wizard. It seems every fight in this right-hand side of the map is going the way of Fallen Angels lately.
Which is mad, because, you've got the 2 cages, essentially, from the Food Fighters, and the Fallen Angels are just happy to fight into it. They just don't care. Yeah. And again, they have the damage, plenty of it, and Zexy Zealot appears to be the sacrificial lamb in these fights. They're more willing to give up that Lancelot, and, in a way, that's kind of your job. Get off some damage, get some kills if you can before you die. And actually has drawn a lot of the ire from the Food Fighters. Meanwhile, Gator Griff on the other side of the map here hasn't been involved in these fights so much, and actually when they have been involved, have struggled actually to make an impact and suddenly find themselves 2 levels down in this jungle matchup, which is madness because Zexizella was behind and 0-3 for so long, but it's because Fallen Angels have been taking all of these fights constantly grouped up as 4 members, and it's winning for them. They're playing with really calculated aggression. They know that there is a weak point, as it were, in that solo lane. They know that the jungle isn't perhaps ahead as they like. They also know they need to ignore this duo lane that we're watching now because that's just a non-factor at this point. You don't want to fight Tova Mesa at the moment. Just ignore it. Fight on the other side of the map. And it's working really well for them. They're fighting into everything that Fallen Angels are throwing at them. And actually, it's gone from wanting to slow the game down to wanting to speed the game up. Another trade going on, and the beads are used. And the relics.
Man, these guys just want to brawl. They are surely going to see Tova Mess on the death screen, and yet shall do so. Now Helenu, again, gets turned onto, but should be able to retreat. We've seen this Ganesh slide out these situations before. But yeah, finally, Tova Mess are punished for their over-aggression. And it's been this sort of way, right? We've seen Griff on this Camazot. They got off to such a good start. But then, like you mentioned, when these team fight phases started, that's not where Camazot wants to be. He wants to be finding someone isolated and killing them off. Does manage to do that this time at the Tova Mesa. Needs a couple more of those to make something happen. Maybe finds one actually onto Zexy Zealot, who does have the ult, but the silence is great. Ult actually the wrong direction. Doesn't get back to safety. Off the horse. Gets knocked up, and Griff shall swoop them down. Now Griff does finally get caught by Bugle Wizard, but that is what we need to be seeing from this Camazot.
Yeah, it's a little bit better, and for once, the Fallen Angels weren't grouped up. Starry has made this rotation here, and hasn't used the teleport, to be fair, but it was on this left-hand side of the map. Golf Fury is very much on the cards here, and currently both junglers are out of this, and it's a big engage onto Zaza. If they force the mid laner out, can they get anything else from this?
Really want to brawl under this tower. Reaper with the double stun, but Reaper's going to take 2 tower shots. Ooh, does have the Aegis ready, so does stay alive. That Odin cage making a big impact there in that fight. Just stopped any follow-up onto Reaper there, who really needed some backup, but it's been so aggressive. You know, we are 23 kills in. We're only 18 minutes through, and right now, it's seemingly the momentum's with Fallen Angels, but they are far from far ahead in the lead.
Yeah, and we're going to see more aggression. How's the CC chain? That is a tanky Odin. And actually baiting really well because it's Tova Mesa on the backline, killing Alcariti again.
Alcariti must hate the sight of this on her, constantly on their face. But oh my goodness, the Agni Bomb's raining absolute hellfire. Again, we see Zexy Zealot in and has to dash back out, but still has their life to work with. Griff up into the sky, but there is no target for them to kill off. Starry and Helenu try to provide some space. Oh, Zealot gets caught actually by that stun. Bugle Wizard on a killing spree on this Maui, and not done yet. Gets the hook, gets the kill. A huge swing for Fallen Angels. Take the beacon, take the tower, and probably going to look at this Gold Fury.
4 for 1. The health bars are a little bit on the low side. Only Reaper here is full, and actually I think they're not going to go for this. I think Bugle Wizard fancies it, but doesn't have the carries quite at the moment. But again, they killed 4 people. Tova Mesa is only just respawning. Starry will be out for another 15 seconds. They still do have the time, and they're going to get... I think this is the first Gold Fury we've seen this game. Yep. It started with a kill onto Alcariti, but from there on, the Agni's been too largely ignored, I think it's fair to say, because that's where all the damage was. Good impale. Zexy Zealot maybe a bit over-aggressive here. Overzealous, shall we say?
Wow!
Kill with the jump. That's a frightening on her. That was a little bit too far up, but still very, very much positive for them. It's a 4.5k gold lead for the Fallen Angels, as big a lead we've seen so far in this game number 1. It feels like they're playing the game they want to, and they didn't let the early whiplash from this Gaio Griff start. They didn't let it get to them, and actually they just continued to play their own game. Alcariti, great pillar!
Great pillar, great chase down. Griff needs to finish the kill. There's an Aegis from Alcariti. The hook will not do enough. Wow. And this dueling so quickly spiraled out of control. Tova Mesa having a lifetime game right now. Just everything that they want to do has been coming up. You know what, Tats? I do remember every time we've cast Tova, we've seen Anher banned out. You know what? I'm starting to see one.
Yeah, absolutely. You are definitely going to have to adapt that into game number 2. He just looks so comfortable. Ridiculous attack speed online already. And everything Tovamessa's done, it's looked confident. There's been a swagger about their play in taking those 1v1s, in forcing the Arjutsus from Hachiman to come out as the Grand Jas has been used, but Anna's swinging away, but Zexizella has the damage. Wow.
I mean, that's one way to deal with the Anher, just completely dash around him. And in fact, Tovamessa, with not a lot of mana to work with, might be in a little bit of danger. Just has enough there, I think, for the leap. And yet, it's just fine. Zexizella does not want the smoke, as it were. So, yeah, Tovamessa has some space, but I think if Food Fighters are to succeed in this upcoming stage, it needs to be by playing around this Anher.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other hand, for the Fallen Angels, that needs to be their first priority target. In a way, you can kind of ignore this Tiamat. Tiamat's still going to do a lot of damage, but nothing like what ignoring this Agony would be like. And that's something I think we've seen this game. Gatorgriff hasn't once been able to get onto this Agony apart from minute 1. And Starry looking for the steal, doesn't get it. Will there be anything after the fact? Probably not. Just looks like a clean disengage for the Fallen Angels. Once again, very happy to take that Pyromancer off the map. The gold lead hasn't extended since that minute ago where we mentioned it. It's just kind of stagnated, and in a way, this is the slowest the game has been, and that's because teams have gone, maybe we'll do some objectives rather than just squabbling and fighting over nothing. As exciting as it's been, they're playing a bit more objective based. Both these sides are. Bugle Wizard hits another pull. Worth talking about the build from Bugle Wizard. We won't talk about Cannon is Curious because amazingly, that is not the item that you highlight in this build. As much as I want to criticize it and tell you how terrible it is, Abyssal Stone has been picked up after the Shifter Shield. This is something that I think does have potential in that support role. It has a lot of procs and a lot of health, which in itself makes it a decent support item for its cost. So I like that anyway. The passive is incidental, but actually very, very useful against a Tiamat, against a Camazotz, who again like to spam and use those abilities to sort of skirt around and in between fights. So I actually really like what this item is doing for Bugle Wizard, but Zexizella could get caught out a bit here, but actually it's a 2v2 at the moment.
Ooh, Zexizella wants the fight. Gatorgriff is actually in a not so optimal spot. Does have the leap available though when they do decide they're in too much danger. And yet, opt to use it now. Tovamessa does take a chunk of damage from those bombs. And hold on, actually jumps right into Twinkletoes, who does take some CC, but still dishes out plenty of damage up into the Somersault Cloud. Tovamessa knows that they are under threat right now, and everyone is engaging onto them, but Tovamessa turns it around right onto Twinkletoes and takes them out, and that has stopped all of the aggression for Fallen Angels. That's that Ganesh we were talking about, Zats, combined with the Odin this time.
Yeah, it was actually really, really powerful, particularly the Odin cage, because Twinkletoes was like, Anha's used everything, used the ultimate, used the beads. This is surely a kill here, but the fact is, the rest of Twinkletoes' teammates got completely zoned out by this Odin cage and couldn't even get close. But speaking of which, Starry's getting zoned out, gets pulled in. Do they have the damage to finish the kill? Yes, they do! Alcariti secures the kill, and there could be more on the way.
The
they try and get onto
damage.
Helenu. Wow!
Oh, wow. Helenu just completely obliterated. There's only 3 members left for Food Fighters, but they still want this fight. Gets on top of Reaper, does Griff, but recognizes the situation. Tova is behind enemy lines and does not seem to care, but they might have to start caring because this Maui is providing a fantastic front line, really making a difference there, and does have to retreat over the wall. Straight into Zexizella, though, taking the 1v1, but all of the damage comes flying over the wall. And with Tovamessa down, Food Fighters don't have a lot in the way of defense. This tier 2 soon to follow, maybe even a Phoenix as well. All of a sudden, Fallen Angels just turn it on and just start burning these structures down.
Yeah, they haven't even had to use the pyro bombs, both of them filling up Bugle Wizard's item slots there. And again, more aggression onto Gatorgriff. Does have the ultimate this time out. Maybe this is a step too far because Starry's teleported in behind them. They could get collapsed on here.
What a flank from Starry. The diving pillars come out first. There is Zexy Zealot, jumped onto by Zareth. Reaper, low health and gets caught. Similarly, Zexy Zealot tries to take a brawl, but a brawl they shall lose. Zareth up back into the sky form, and now Twinkletoes trying to finish off this health bar, but doesn't have enough left in the tank. Starry, with the fantastic flank, manages to make it out as well. Now Tova is back alive. Twinkletoes blinks onto Zareth and shall get the kill, and manages to avoid getting knocked up too. Alcariti, though, has a lot of damage for Starry. Starry leaping away. Bugle Wizard wants them back in, but Starry zigzags out and says no thank you. But it is just a mid lane Phoenix. Fire Giant still stands.
Yeah, after what was a big kill swing, they end up getting the Phoenix, and then Zexy Zealot goes back in on a Camazotz with ultimate, and they do eventually kill the Camazotz. Probably a little bit of over-aggression. They got what they came for. They didn't have to stay past that, because having taken down that second tower and that Phoenix, they would have had a lot of gold in hand. They also got basically a deicide as well. They'd have had a lot in gold in hand, and they weren't actually utilizing that because they hadn't backed in a long time, and that's why I think that was just a little bit over aggressive from them. They don't need to make that play. There's no other objectives that they're likely going to get, and the steal doesn't come through for Twinkletoes. I also want to point out that Starry got that flank on with the teleport and kind of did nothing but used half their health bar and kept both carries busy. But now this is a full-on Fire Giant, and I don't think the Food Fighters are ready for this.
Yeah, definitely not ready. They're paying attention to Twinkletoes, who now has set the signal, and that is too late for Food Fighters to deal with. They recognized what was happening, but then they have lost that big objective. And Fallen Angels want to push ahead here. Griff needs to be careful they don't get caught. Similarly does Helenu, but they do manage to get out safely for now. But Fallen Angels, they've got the mid lane Phoenix already down. They have Fire Giant on 5. This map is completely theirs.
Yeah, and actually now they're going to play it slightly more cautiously. They'll spend all their gold. They'll want to hit level 20 and finish up those starter items. That's kind of what you're looking at this stage. And then once you've done that, once everyone is back full HP with their builds, you can start grouping up and looking at these last tier 2 towers. And I would expect to see a Phoenix push. I think the gold lead and experience lead is enough where you do want to press this advantage as much as you can. So I expect to see the group. I like that they're grouping on the left-hand side. That's the real target. Obviously, you wanna focus on, if you are going to go for a Phoenix, focus on the side where Fire Giant isn't. So you want to aim for the left-hand side of the map, and that will just give you so much map pressure. Even if they only take the tower and get some poke onto this Phoenix, but it's worth pointing out, Pyrobomb's still on the table for both Reaper and Bugle Wizard. Gale Griff could get caught out though.
Oh no! Griff thought he was being sneaky, but ends up getting snack. And will manage to just about create enough distance. Oh, but Zexy Zealot blinking over the wall. Griff thought they had space. Now Starry forced to retreat. Good pressure now on this left-hand side for Fallen Angels. They want to step in. Bugles in first. Twinkletoes blinking onto Starry. Starry has some health to work with, but not a whole lot to work with. The cage will come down, which will stop this aggression so far. Tova Mesa forced to burn that Desert Fury as well. And here comes Zexy Zealot from the backside. Tova Mesa loses all the relics, and then their life to follow. The Phoenix is down. The base is open. The Fire Minions are in. And Fallen Angels are looking to sweep this first game up. Reaper forced to retreat from Starry, who's trying to buy some time for their team. There is still a tier 2 tower up. Zareth brawling it out, half HP on this Titan. Reaper's low health. Zareth gets a kill onto a backliner. You need to finish off the other one though. Reaper low, but has the damage pushed out, and that is enough for Fallen Angels to take game number 1.
Massive performance from Fallen Angels. They grabbed momentum from nowhere, and because they really didn't have it in that early game, and they just took it and they ran with it for the rest of that game. And there was some fight back, but it felt like the Food Fighters never really responded in the right way. They were always on the back foot, and while that did work at times with the comp that they had, with the Odin, with the Ganesh, they weren't necessarily bad being on the back foot, but they never looked in control of that game in a way that they would be able to wrestle back the win, because they never got close to those Phoenixes. They never even contested that one Fire Giant. And massive credit again goes to Fallen Angels. They took one Fire Giant and it won them the game. That was peak efficiency from them, despite the fact that, again, in the early game, it was all about the food fighters and how efficient they were being across the map and how well they were farming and how they had the initiative. Completely switched it over, and you have to say it felt comfortable from the Fallen Angels. It never felt like it wasn't in their hands, even when it felt like they were falling behind a little bit in that early game.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when the switch flipped for Fallen Angels, but at some point they just went, hey, we are actually really strong in this phase. We can just take these fights, and yeah, take the fights they did. Even with Tova Mesa putting up a really strong performance on this Anher, especially given that they were quite behind early on and really had to suffer through that early phase. It felt like such a back and forth game, but ultimately, like we said, comes out with Fallen Angels on top. And well, I'm really interested to see what Food Fighters do about that, because when we were talking about their draft sets, we thought that Food Fighters may have had the advantage.
Yeah, I do think it was close, and it has to be said that there are a few, I think, bands that will come out. We may well see, even though it was on the losing side, that Armher could get banned away. I
Yep.
think the Lance, tough to say. For me, the highlights there were the Sun Wukong from Twinkle Toes and Reaper on this Agni were fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
As was Bugle Wizard on the Maui. They had near flawless games, I will say. And that's something that's tough to deal with. Is it something you can deal with in picks and bans? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm excited to see what the changes will be nonetheless, because there are changes that I think need to be made.
All right, let's see what those changes are when we get to the next game. We're going to go for a quick break, but we'll be right back for game number 2. And we are back in again for game number 2 between Food Fighters and Fallen Angels. Very interesting here. That's Food Fighters, like we mentioned earlier, come in as your number 2 seed, but currently facing a 3rd seeded Fallen Angels with match point in this semifinals. It's so cruel that it is only a best of 3, but it is only a best of 3. So what do the Food Fighters need to change this time around, Zats, to maybe sway this set more towards their favor?
I think some things could be changed in the draft, possibly. I'd like to see Starry go away from that Odin. I mentioned that I wasn't a big fan of it.
Yep.
Maybe if you put Odin in a different role, sure, we can have that conversation. But get Starry on something more mobile, more aggressive. More of these hybrid solo lanes, because I think the Sun Wukong showed in the meta that we're in at the moment, and a lot of it comes down to that 9.5 revert. It's gone from the argument that anyone could position anywhere because health is so high that it doesn't matter, to you cannot step out position even slightly as a frontliner because you will just get blown up. And even while that wasn't so relevant that game, because Odin is just there to be a lump and is naturally very tanky and tough to kill, but doesn't do much else. We saw on the other side this Sun Wukong with a decent bit of damage, lots of sustain, lots of mobility. I think it's just a much more effective play style out of that solo lane, and that's what I'd like to see change. So maybe when they take this first pick, the Food Fighters, maybe they look at taking that Lancelot, putting it into solo, something like that. Maybe they put the Camazots into the solo if you can. That would be, I think, a better play style for Starry and for the team overall, because I think they'll have a lot more joy on that side of the map then as well.
Yeah, definitely have to be prepared for that when we can see these picks and bans, because like we said, Starry on that Odin didn't really feel super smooth, and it's almost evidence now to Food Fighters that they can't just give up that solo lane, right? It's not going to be the type of lane where you can just, play something slow, show up later, it'll work. No, we saw that Sun Wukong absolutely ran the show there. And, you definitely need to be very aware of that, because, it's similarly for Fallen Angels. If they've recognized that Starry is willing to play slowly in solo lane, you can start to take a pick, maybe like a Surtur, something even more aggressive, or a Chuck that will really start to run things early. Let's see if that is what Fallen Angels decide to do as we head on in to picks and bans for this second game. Now, Food Fighters have elected to go for this first pick again. Is this what you'd recommend for them, Zeds?
I think it's fair. I think there's an element of stick to your guns, stick to what you planned, where possible, and the fact that you lost that game does mean you get choice. So I'm okay with that. I don't think we'll see the Camazots banned from the Fallen Angels. Obviously it had a really good start, but it really struggled late game. So, and I also think Gator Griff might want to play something else going into this game of 2. I am possibly looking at that Lancelot, as I mentioned, but already we're seeing a slight adjustment because that Sun Wukong has been taken away from Twinkletoes, and whether it's a strong pick, whether you should be using a ban on it or not, just getting Twinkletoes off that pick is a very good idea.
Yeah, a lot of the time, especially when we are in these late stage playoff, events where you want to basically challenge the other team. Say, all right, you beat us with that. What else have you got? Have you got another solo laner you can put in that type of performance with? Because sometimes they just don't, and sometimes you can build off of that. But we are actually seeing the Lancelot band away. Wow. We had theorized that maybe Food Fighters were fishing for that as their top pick. But with that off the table, what do you think they might be aiming for here?
There's a lot open. They could go for that Camazots again. There's also things like the Charybdis, which was I believe was banned last game. I don't particularly want to see that first. I think that would be the wrong direction to go, especially for someone like Tovamessa. Tovamessa needs to be on aggressive ADC, and I wouldn't like to see that. Other than that, they're actually for the nude. No, this was okay. So this was the other ban that came through last game. Isn't happening this game. Intrigued to see where this one goes. It kind of makes sense to me if it is locked in, and there it is. The Noir, very much a late game mage. Does have some decent interactions pre-level 5, but is so effective outside of a team fight. That ultimate, the fire shards gives you vision. You get to put divine ruin or whatever other debuffs you want onto the enemy team before the fight has even begun, and obviously the damage is very, very high, especially at killing frontline as well. So I don't mind it. I'm intrigued to see how it goes, especially since it was banned game number one. Let's see how it does.
Yeah, we do see the new, obviously locked, like you said, was banned out previously, so maybe we will learn why Fallen Angels banned it out. But interestingly, the Anher still on the table for food fighters. I would probably advise they do go for it, even though it got pressured out a little bit early on. And now there is a Camazotz on the other side, which does what Lancelot does, but even more safe. I would still think that Tova Mesa should go for it. It looked so powerful and just has the potential to take over a game. Instead, it is the Rama pickup for food fighters. Now, Rama does combo a little bit better with the Nuwa. You can ult both at the same time. Both your backliners take off to the sky and just start winning you the team fight. But with a Medusa and a Camazotz to contend with, I have got actually a lot of worries for this Rama.
I'm not so sure. I don't really get the Medusa pick over the Hachiman personally. Obviously, Alcurati had some struggles into the 1v1, but I think that will happen anyway because it feels like Tova Mesa is just on one this set.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Hachi scales well, arguably better than Anher. Certainly was having a good impact in team fights and is a lot safer as well. Medusa is not very safe. She's really not a safe ADC. I think she might struggle in that 1v1 even more so, and will therefore struggle more in the late game as well than you would on a Hachiman. That's actually more of a concern for me, because I think putting Tova onto whoever they're feeling, if it's Rama, then great, because you just know Tova's probably going to hit some good snipes and win some 1v1s, because that's what Rama does better than anyone.
Ooh, a Terra being locked
Wow.
in. A big diversity in the supports here. A lot of the competitive meta, particularly in the support role at the moment, has just been Kumakana versus Athena. And now we're seeing complete disregard of those two gods. Haven't even been banned out so far. But yeah, it's definitely more fun when we get to see a bit of a mix-up coming through. But yeah, Terra being locked in for Fallen Angels, it just screams to me that they want to be on the front foot, right? Terra can provide a bit of peel and does have some very good safety tools in the kit, but does a very good job of taking your team and carrying them forward. I do love this Agni ban coming up from Food Fighters because, again, you're just forcing Fallen Angels to play something different. And I believe they're all playing different gods in this second game. And that's almost one of the best things you can hope for in a picks and bans phase. Because, if you're taking them off some of their more comfortable picks and changing things up, I'm very excited to see exactly what they can do now. But, ooh, Maman Brigitte locked in. Maman, not a god we see too much stats, but, well, we're going to be seeing them this game. What do you think Maman brings to the table here?
I actually really, really like it, and what I hope it means is that Camazotz will go solo for for Twinkle Toes, and then we'll see Maman in the jungle. I'm hoping. She has a lot of surprising damage in the early game that, if you're not prepared for, can catch you out. Much like Camazotz, I suppose. You need to be very wary. She also scales pretty well into the late game. There's a ton of burst damage there. If you blink, get your one, hit the stun, and dash, that's gonna kill someone. The fact that you can hide inside someone as Maman, I think, means that she's very, very potent at getting in, getting a kill, and surprisingly good at getting out as well. I really like the Mammon pick. I think it's actually one of the best pressure magical junglers you can get. I don't think there are actually many can match her. And I think if you're not well prepared for it, it can really catch you out.
All right, so we look like we've got both of the drafts finalized. We do see that Kumbhakana come in for Food Fighters, who have an extremely CC heavy comp, particularly in that front line. Serket plus Kumbhakana equals one dead person on the side of Fallen Angels. However, on the Fallen Angel side, it looks like that will be a Medusa in the mid lane. They have obviously the Camazotz likely in the solo with the Charybdis for that bit of safety in the carry role. And it's two completely different drafts to what we saw in game one. But looking at them here, Zats, is there either one that you're actually going to favor?
I actually do favour the Fallen Angels now. I should have seen that Medusa could have gone mid, because actually putting Alcariti on a Charybdis makes a lot of sense to me. I actually really like that. Lots of safety. Not that bothered by the double cripple coming out from Kumba and Rama. You can still just jump into that whirlpool form. I'm a big fan of that. I think that you're not too worried about overstacking that physical damage. It's generally not an issue anyway. But the fact you've got a Terra and a Mammon, there's very high damage potential and a lot of very scary dive. If you think about getting hit by the Terra ult and some ticks from Camazotz and Mammon, as a backliner, you are going to die incredibly quickly. Yep. I think that's very potent. And maybe Medusa's the one that's going to get caught out, but I think if you play fights the way that you did in game number one, the way the Fallen Angels just took everything on their terms, it will not matter, and the Food Fighters won't get a chance to fight into it. I'm actually favouring their draft a lot more than I was in game number one.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here from these two teams is the Food Fighters style tends to be this more controlling, organized combination style play, whereas the Fallen Angels, they just seem all in on chaos. Like, look at this. It's such a chaotic draft to go into. Potentially, you could have a Maman, a Terra, Medusa, and a Camazotz just diving you. Similarly, they could all be retreating and still dishing out decent damage. It's very slippery of a team to deal with, whereas Food Fighters, they just want to lock one, maybe two people down, combine some ultimates, and look to take some objectives around it, whereas Fallen Angels seem all in on the fight scene. It's really interesting. It's potential for this to go completely the other way, right? Food Fighters could take control of this game. They've got Rama and Nuwa in that late game. If we get there, that's going to be a very, very tough backline to deal with, even with the Fallen Angels having such a good dive situation. You can't dive into the skies. Dive tends to be downwards, whereas Rama and Nuwa, they just want to go upwards. Maybe Kumbhakana sends someone up there with them, but that's about it. That's the closest the Fallen Angels are getting back up into the sky. So definitely potential for both of these two teams to run away with it. Let's see if anyone can start off strong as we head on over to game number 2. Again, match point for Fallen Angels. It is Twinkle Toes on that Camazotz solo. This is going to be a very, very spicy game.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned. I think the dual lane for Food Fighters will be strong. Rama Kumba. I mean, Kumba, we didn't talk about how good that matchup is into Terra. You have multiple ways to shut down the double dash from Terra. Kumba, Groggy Strike cripples, and you've got a Mez as well. And Rama Wave Clear will negate anything that Charybdis can do, even though Charybdis has good wave clear in itself. I think once everything settles down, I would expect the Food Fighters to be perfectly fine there. But as we see, action in that solo lane. That
it is a cringe
might be what you need right now, Judas.
Look, it's semi-finals and you're down match point. If you are not cringe ganking, you are not trying hard enough. We do see there Gato Griff getting this early kill onto the Camazotz, and that's basically exactly what Starry needs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's buying you a little bit of space. It's we didn't talk about that Osiris very much. Frankly, compared to what Food Fighters were trying to do in game number 1, which was, brute force their way into a couple of early kills with some cringe ganks, and then focus entirely on the Bull Demon and taking objectives off the map. I don't think Osiris and Saket really do that, and actually Starry could be in more trouble. Mammon is here. Let's see how much damage it's got.
Man is in, doesn't get the stun just yet. Now does. The Camazotz damage is not quite enough there. And maybe not the biggest commitment there. Only level 2 causes Twinkle Toes. Alcariti forced to retreat. Griff there going for a similarly styled gank on this left-hand side as they did on right, but not quite so successful. Bugle Wizard just 2 on the ball.
Yeah, that was actually a really good dash. Point blank blocked the Cobra's Kiss. That honestly perfectly timed. Reaper has used the beads, it hasn't used the stun, and this is a lot more fighting than I thought we'd see in the mid lane of the new world, frankly. But actually doing really well to get the beads from Reaper already. I think it's going to take a little bit too long to get online for the Foo Fighters. Going back to their draft, going back to concerns. I think they're not going to have a strong objective play with this Ket and this Osiris. And now they do have a lot of pressure in that solo lane already. That's going to help, but we're not going to see as many invade potentials, I think. So it's going to be naturally slower on that side of the map. It's going to be slower in the mid lane because it's Nuar. And again, Kumba and Rama, I think will be very happy in lane, but there's not going to be fireworks there. So it's all very slow to me. And the only positive you would have to say is that the most scary part of the Fallen Angels draft, this Camazot solo, has already been stymied probably just enough to stall out this early game. And actually, it means we've had one of the slowest starts to a game we've seen in America all year, frankly. But I'd say that we've got action. Zealot is getting engaged. Wow.
Goodness.
Ton of damage. That'll be a conduit gem proc on the fire shards, I guess. Just enough. And that's a kill onto Zexy Zealot. That's turned everything on its head. And wow, I can't believe how much damage that did.
Look, sometimes that's when you get level 5, you just hit your ult button on whoever you can see. And that seems to be what Fallen Angels are looking to do as well, actually. Tova Mesa, in some danger, does now get an ultimate of their own, so should have some more safety. But yeah, Food Fighters getting off to a good start. They did this in the previous game, but maybe doing it in more of a controlled fashion in this second time around. Fallen Angels certainly want more control than that, because that's a Petrify that completely whiffs. Gator Griff dashing in deep does find that Zexy Zealot is nearby and doesn't want to take that fight in this situation. On the left-hand side, we see a bit of scrapping going down. Tova Mesa forced to burn the Purification Beads, and the Fallen Angels dual lane so strong so far. We saw this play in game number 1. We see it again in game number 2. Tova Mesa jukes out all of the ultimates, gets away safely for the time being, but only for a time. Al-Kariti diving deep with that Whirlpool form gets that kill. Now Zexy Zealot still here. Gator Griff, fresh from the return to base, will now spot both out, misses the Cobra's Kiss. Actually dashes in place, and Zexy Zealot gets out alive.
Wow, got away with murder, literally. Fantastic play, actually. You use the dash to avoid the Cobra's Kiss, and that looked like a death sentence, but no, really nicely played. They get that kill. A little bit sloppy onto Tova Mesa. Interesting that everything I've predicted about this set has been completely the opposite. Tova Mesa and Helen have really struggled, actually. It feels like, you've picked the Kumba to counter this Terra, but really Terra still, even if you're cancelling out those dashes, you've still got a heal and you've still got a very easy to apply stun, and you can block people. It's doing a lot, and actually it's not worked out for you so far, this kind of counter pick that they've gone for. And as a result, Tova Mesa has already taken a spill. Accuracy's in a much more comfortable position than last game. Has got a kill, level up. Very, very happy in this lane. And that's quite a lot of damage from that Terra.
A ton of damage from Bugle Wizard. Caught the roll from Tova as well. Just sits him in place and nukes half his HP bar, and actually going to force this Rama to return to the base again. And man, it's just so painful all of a sudden for Food Fighters on this left-hand side. It all comes down to what they can continue to do on this right-hand side. They're pressuring this blue buff. Twinkle Toes in big danger. But the last breath actually hits the blue buff instead.
Wow.
Twinkle Toes gets out alive, and now the reinforcements are in. Reaper spitting tons of damage, and that will be Zexy Zealot taking down Griff for all of their aggression. The blink comes out as the stun if they want it, just putting out more of the fire breath, but the party trick is not tricky enough. However, Starry doesn't recognize that Twinkle Toes here just about. Corner peeks at the right time, but Zazith on the way, all the way over, has the damage needed to nuke Twinkle Toes if they want to. Starry wants in. Oh my goodness, Zexy Zealot deleted from the game, and there is Starry to follow them. Twinkle Toes, the mid laners, brawl it out in this pseudo shop. Griff back on the scene. Oh my goodness, Zazith on this new war. What is he cooking?
Yo, Nuar kind of slaps. This is not a late game god, apparently. Just put a conduit gem on there, finish that Spear of Desolation. Enormous damage coming out, and also there was definitely like a sneak attack in there, wasn't there? I had no idea that Zazith was hiding in that fog ready to pull out that combo. enormous damage, and it looked like it was going well for Fallen Angels. They did get a kill. It was nice to play from Zexizella. Didn't quite get the confirm onto Starry. Also, maybe went a bit too far once you've committed your stun as a Mammon Brigitte. You really don't have much in the way of damage or defense, as it were. So, once you'd done that at the enemy blue buff, that was always tough. And we saw Zarzith rotate slightly quicker than Reaper, which is not a surprise. Zarzith does like to rotate from this mid lane and try and impact the map where possible. See a bit of a scrap in the jungle, and I think I know who's winning that one.
Junglers brawling out. Zexy Zealot forced to retreat, getting chased down. There's the fire shards, and Zexy Zealot does not have enough life to work with. Helenu creating the space. Starry also here for the space, and that's all that was needed. Zexy Zealot struggling now on this Mama, despite playing it quite well so far.
I mean, look, we have to. Everything that we're seeing is taken with a pinch of salt, because this is what happened in game number 1 to an extent. We saw Zexy Zealot fall really far behind it in this jungle matchup specifically, getting out-dueled, out-1v1'd by Gatorgriff. That much is clear. Gatorgriff loves these early fights and loves kind of pressing the advantage. And rightfully so, you've got Saketi, you've got a lot of mobility and good setup into damage. So, it's working perfectly for them. But I do think this Mammon does need to take a little bit of time. And actually, one thing we are seeing that's different from the first game is the Fallen Angels actually willing to pick up this Bull Demon and get it. Will it be scot-free?
Possibly not. Zexy Zealot probably going to be stunned by Starry. Does manage to get the dash away. Griff dashes over the wall, or blinks over the wall, and decides that is not where they want to be, and quickly sounds the retreat. But yeah, that's just a cheap objective for Fallen Angels to pick up there. They'll be happy with that. That's definitely the type of play they wanted. Alcariti and Tova Mesa, we see this 1v1 yet again, but it seems like the Charybdis has the advantage and just does so much damage with that capsize, and very hard to take a 1v1 when you've already been hit by that.
You're using the ultimate to maybe confirm the green buff. I don't mind this play. This Charybdis, you can see why it was banned. Is it a bit of a bait? Helenu is here, but I think we'll eventually get caught by this Kumbhakana. There's the ult. It's free. You can see why this Charybdis was banned away in game number 1. That the fact that you can max your 2 and your spike shots still do so much damage. And just clear the way for free with no points in it. That makes her really powerful, and Bugle Wizard tanking up a lot here, but has used the ult. This could be a big counter engage.
Yeah, Zexy Zealot there did pop the ult. Don't quite do enough damage though on the fire shards. Enough to take down Bugle Wizard with Tova Mesa's help. Alcariti did manage to immune that damage. Zexy Zealot dashes into the Kumba and avoids the epic uppercut, but cannot avoid the rest of the shots from Tova Mesa. And now, space for Food Fighters to take the Gold Fury. The momentum shifts again.
And all that was because Reaper chose not to rotate. That Medusa is still split pushing down that mid tier 1 tower. Is going to get it, but I think you lost too much in response. You're going to lose that Gold Fury. Maybe you get an invade as well. It's good for your own personal farm, but the fact is Nuar's gotten 3 cheap kills and actually going to make the rotation to left. I'm not sure I like this. I think Starry's fine.
Yeah, Starry immediately on the ultimate there. No hesitation. Lord of the Afterlife out. And shall remain in the present life, shall we say. But yeah, it's just been so much that the Food Fighters got from so little as well. It seemed like lots of the Fallen Angels are committed to the left-hand side. Oh, Tova Mesa manages to pick up the return kill in the 1v2. Will be happy enough with that, but did lose, I think, the beads there and the ultimate in the process. Will get a Bull Demon for their team, but this game's so back and forth. It seems like neither side can quite lock down exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, and actually it does feel a lot more even than compared to game number 1. Even with the same kind of aggression from Gatorgriff, we've seen more aggression onto Tova Mesa, and that I think is crucial. And we talked about this Charybdis. It is being left relatively unchecked, and even though Bugle Wizard had to die for that kill, very, very much worth it because Alcariti's in a really, really good spot. Your Medusa in the mid lane, Reaper has also been farming very, very well. Obviously, choosing not to rotate at times, but actually, as a result, is really well farmed. Big aggression onto Helenu, but a nice epic upcut. The CC immunity to avoid that knockup from the Mammon. That was really nice, actually, and it's actually burned a lot from the Fallen Angels, and just for the ultimate return.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Kumbhakana does really well right now. It takes a lot to take this sleeping giant down, but even if you manage it, still had the passive in pocket there. So definitely a mistake, I think, to commit too much onto a Kumbhakana. Definitely more slippery than they may seem. But in the left-hand side, we're seeing Griff step on up to the dual lane. Alcariti has going to have freedom of the map no longer until Griff takes a couple of blades to the face and decides, yeah, you know what? You can have this side of the map. I think that Charybdis is going to be quite safe for quite some time. And now we're into this lull period, Zats, where Pyromancer's on its way up. There is a Fire Giant available in about 2 minutes, but you don't see anyone going for it. Gold Fury still down. Who do you think should be the ones looking to press the advantage at this stage, where it is a bit of space to work with?
I think the Fallen Angels have really good objective burn. And they should be looking for that with double ADC and a Mammon. It's also worth pointing out there's a 2-level lead for Zexy Zealot in this jungle, which is madness. And then we saw it in game number 1, but the fact is Gator Griff is fighting so much that actually is ending up missing out on farm. But Pyromancer does go to the food fighters. That must have been a steal. Will there be more? Will there be a kill in response? Gator Griff is sneaking out, but Helenu, having tried to steal that Pyro, is now deep in enemy lines.
Zexy Zealot completely caught Helenu. I think that was the Kumbhakana stealing that Pyro away. Twinkle Toes too late on the rotation, and they're not able to lock anyone down enough. This is the control that I've mentioned Fallen Angels are lacking. You know, you can't really zone that well if they're not afraid of your damage. And, you know, with Zexy Zealot diving onto, I believe, Zareth and Gato Griff there, it just meant that Helenu, tons of space to walk up to that objective, and unfortunately for Fallen Angels, they do let that one slip. And well, we are still 14 minutes in, almost dead even in the goal. 500 going one way. Experience difference 11.
Yeah, just such a scrappy, odd game. It feels like both these teams are much more nervous about this one. You know, maybe this is third seed being in a winning position, being a bit worried about that, and we see another gank onto Twinkle Toes. Tanky Camazots, but there's the damage.
No ult. Yeah, no ult to work with, and it took some time, but Twinkle Toes just goes down. Like you mentioned, relatively tanky Camazots, but when you don't have the bat out of hell, the tankiness doesn't really matter. However, classic response. Fallen Angels go for the Primal Fury. The Fire Shards will reveal that ploy, and that will be enough to dissuade them from pushing any further. Now, this gold is still available. Tomames, in fact, picking it up, but cannot tank it alone. Bugle Wizard wants to step up. Helenu, similarly so, wants to cause some havoc in the Fallen Angels front line. This Primal Fury, though, it's going to be tough pull for food fighters if they want to do it now with so many of the Fallen Angels nearby. Reaper as well. Holding that Petrify in pocket means this is just too scary. The food fighters will have to be satisfied with their one pick.
Yeah, but I think they're okay with that, given that the Fallen Angels, there was a window there to potentially try and sneak that Gold Fury in. But really, their damage wasn't there, was it? It wasn't quite good enough at this stage of the game. Don't you just hate Kumbhakana? We're seeing more aggression from Gator Griff, trying to get some kind of invade, or let's be honest, Gator Griff isn't thinking about invading. Gator Griff's just thinking about who can I kill next. Such is their play style, and you know, we actually mentioned how it's actually put them a little bit behind Zexy Zealot, who's obviously a bit more farm oriented. That's definitely expected on this Mammon Brigitte, who again I think has struggled to really impact the game. Her damage isn't online yet. Going into this double lifesteal build, Twinkle Toes getting ganked again. Does have the Bar of Hell this time, so should be safe whatever happens. They force it nice and early actually. Possibly could have held on to that a little bit more. Because there's not a ton of damage coming out from this, okay? You know, the setup is good, but it's going to a Shifter Shield, and ults are being used, but it's a 3v2. Bugle Wizards has popped the Terror, but they're looking for Alcariti.
Yeah, all in on Alcariti is Gato Griff, but there's Bugle Wizard instead in danger. The last breath will tick them down. Reaper, though, makes the rotation over. Ooh, doesn't find the shots, though, does Reaper. Misses with the Petrify as well and doesn't have enough damage. Alcariti is here with them to dish some out. Reaper, though, gets caught by the Cobra's Kiss, and she'll feel the full wrath of it. Tova Mesa rolling in, gets the shot. The capsize does not matter. However, extra player on the scene. Twinkle Toes blinks on in, gets the Aegis from Tova Mesa. Surely will get the kill onto Tova Mesa. Starry, similarly so, gets the kill. It is a clean sweep across the map. 3 kills for 3, I believe.
So I think it was a 4 for 3 because Bugle Wizard died first.
Oh, yeah?
But technically it's a 3 for 2 because 2 of those kills happened in mid lane. I think Zexy Zealot managed to take out Zarzith in a 1v1. Which I don't know how that happens. They must have missed the stun from those playing minions. And as soon as that happens, that gives you your windows, the Mammon Brigitte. But then Starry, who didn't rotate like Twinkle Toes did, managed to pick up the return kill onto Zexy Zealot. I think we're all caught up there now. And then there was all the shenanigans in the duo lane. Yeah, a couple of missed shots there coming out from Reaper, which was slightly alarming to see. And now we're seeing more aggression over the Stygian Beacon. It's going to be a full-on team fight. Reaper gets the dash rate. This is a lot onto this.
Here we go. Reaper on the retreat, does finally get caught, still alive, finally has the Petrify, but just too late. Big stun comes out from Helenu there, and I think that stops any counter-aggression from Fallen Angels, who still want to fight over this beacon. Helenu gets caught for a moment, Banner of Hell comes through, no clear target to chase down though, and it will be a Stygian Beacon for Fallen Angels, traded out just for Reaper, who didn't manage to lose anything as that goes, because they'd already lost everything in the duo lane. However, Fallen Angels, they're going to pull this Gold Fury, waiting around the corner. The Oracle should spell the trap, and that'll be Zarzith there, falling down to Zexy Zealot. Helenu similarly so. Very low HP. Is Tova Mesa trying to bait this teleporter coming out? Goes up to the sky. The teleport's still triggering, actually. I'm not sure that's a visual glitch, but actually it was Starry from the other side of the map teleports into the battle, and now might start tipping the scales. Tova Mesa has the space to keep fighting. There's another team fight going on all this time, but Alcariti is now managing to retreat. Tova wants to TP out. Starry is still in. Reaper goes for the Petrify, just too late, but Starry will fall down, and just like it was planned, the Gold Fury goes the way of the Fallen Angels. But on the right-hand side, Tova Mesa takes another 1v1 against Reaper. Reaper has the advantage here. Surely gets one shot, gets all that they need. The Gold Fury goes the way of Fallen Angels. My goodness, what just happened?
That was, I believe, a delayed deicide. They managed to get all 5 members off the board at some point or another. Staggered a little bit, but in the end, they get the Gold Fury. I think they got a kill onto everybody. It was a really nice bait, actually, because they kind of split up. They were seeing if they could just do Gold Fury with the 2 carries, and then you had Zealot and Bugle Wizard, I think, trying to take the fight and try and bait someone in, and that worked out really well. Also, Alcariti was doing a ton of damage, so in what I thought might be a decent steal attempt, or at least a good fight for Tova Mesa, Alcariti was just doing too much damage to whoever was in front of them, and that is proving to be a big problem. They get the objectives. They've taken Pyromancer off the board as well now. It does feel like they're starting to play like they did in game number 1. They're starting to get control back. You know, these last 2 fights have been massive kill swings, really against the run of play from what we've seen so far. But I think that's because Starry doesn't feel super tanky at the moment. Gato has actually fallen a little bit too far behind and isn't really tanky enough to make it work. Only has the Shooter Shield, but the rest is all a normal damage build. And I think Serket does struggle more than most against these other full damage assassins, especially when you're behind like that. I think she really struggles to have an impact. And the fact is, across the rest of the board, everyone's just kind of keeping up. Everyone's kind of even. But early use of the ult from Starry, trying to get the teleport off, will do it, but it might not save them.
What was 2 individual fights is going to turn into one big team fight. Al-Kareti does finally fall to Tova Mesa on the left-hand side. Starry will eventually go down, but Zazith has been picked off in the mid lane in the meantime. So, whack, chaos erupting across the map all of a sudden. And, well, just like that, we see 2 kills going the way of Fallen Angels for just Al-Kareti.
Wow, at one of these points, Zexy Zealot might actually take a fight in a team fight with everyone else, and we'll get to see what this Mammon can do. But that's twice now that Zealot has just soloed Zarzith without even using the ultimate. A dash in from Reaper, actually, and this is clearly a bait. They're looking to get a fight, then they're looking to get a pick. They're not looking for this objective, but Helenu actually gets the beads away from Reaper. Does have the passive still as well. This is quite a bait, but that's 4 people you've got to contend with. And even through that Sleepy Time passive, will fall down. Will they be able to look for Fire Giant? They're not convinced about it, and they know that Ramarol and Nuarol will be on the table soon. They're still not entirely happy with that. They're going to need more if they are going to pull this Fire Giant.
Well, Helenu might have fallen, but what they have done is bought the time for the rest of their team to be on the scene. Again, Fallen Angels more interested in taking the fight, but they are still holding on to that Fire Giant in case they get an opportunity. But they're going to start taking quite a lot of damage. Food Fighter's still hanging around. It is going to get dropped by Fallen Angels. Otova needs to watch their back. Does just roll away from Zexy Zealot right in time. And this backline combination of the Rama and the Nuwa, quite tough to get on top of, but even if you do, you have to worry about the damage they dish out to you.
Yeah, it's going to be a case of can you blink and dash inside them to avoid all the damage immediately, and then hope you're able to get some kind of damage off in response. There's really not much of a window to do that, whether you're Zexy Zealot or if you're Twinkle Toes on this Camelot, who may be a little bit tankier, but will die almost just as quickly into this double backline. Really tough to deal with. This will be a nice pickup if they can get the Oni Fury, and Rama could probably solo this, let's be honest, without Gato Griff, but, who I think is really struggling at this stage of the game to really have an impact, not been able to find a backliner at all. And actually what I think we want to see more from Gato Griff is actually you're focused more on killing whichever frontliner Helenu wants to CC. If you can CC chain between the Circuit and the Kumbhakana, and you've got a damage dealer nearby, whoever that is going to die. So you're looking to play this as a pick comp. We identified that in picks and bans. You're looking to get individual picks. The problem is that it feels like they don't really have the presence on the map at the moment. Their backline plays so far back, and Zarzith under a lot of pressure. Vampire Bats has missed, but surely this is a kill.
Surely so. Twinkle Toes all alone with Zarzith to work with. Oh my god, a shot! And there's the damage coming out. Twinkle Toes now shoved into danger, but Zarzith still alive. Now it's a trade 1-for-1 so far. Griff has fallen, but so has the Camazots. Now, somehow, Zarzith gets out of that alive. I have no idea how they managed that, but Tova Mesa now about to feel the full brunt of, Fallen Angels just running them down despite them being in the sky. This tier 2 tower dishing out some damage, but not enough damage for Starry to work with. Helenu back on the scene. Zarzith back on the scene, gets stunned out and has to use the beads. Helenu there, forced to use the epic uppercut just somewhat randomly. Zarzith forced to go up to the sky. Not enough damage to finish anyone off. My goodness, so much expended, but the Fallen Angels win this fight overall 2-1.
Yeah, once again, the Fallen Angels not happy to just pull an objective. They know they need to get more picks, and even killing 2 people doesn't feel like quite enough. And I think the fact they lost Twinkle Toes to a tragedy of a number of missed abilities there, combined with a good shell, actually, it's worth pointing out, from Helenu as well. So good from the peel, from the Kumba. But Zarzith managed to live that time. But you can see that's where the problem lies, and really, there were some good jukes in there and some missed abilities, but it was slightly alarming how long it took for someone to reach Zarzith. As long as they don't allow that to happen again, as long as they're all grouped up properly, that'll be much more difficult for the Fallen Angels to pull off. As scrappy and as frankly weird as this game has been, it does feel really, really close at the moment. It feels like for both teams, there are elements that aren't working so well, and there are elements that are working really well. and it's so hard to call either way which way this game is going to go.
Well, the Fire Giant pit is simple to call. It has been in full control of Fallen Angels basically this entire set. Again, Fallen Angels the one to drag this objective, but there will be all 5 members of Food Fighters nearby. Now, we do see Zexy Zealot with a good angle behind Starry, but isn't able to do any more with it. Twinkle Toes forced into that bat out of hell early, but Rama up to the sky, and that's going to be a dangerous spot for them to come down in. Helen, who surely will be falling soon. Zazeth again 1v1 with Twinkle Toes, but this time does go down to Zexy Zealot. Tova Mesa brawling out what they can, but they have already fallen, and Zats, this might be Food Fighters going out of this tournament. Fallen Angels want to give chase. There is still in mid lane Phoenix. Oh, the blink, and there's a triple kill for Zexy Zealot. Surely now Fallen Angels make eyes for the end. They don't have a minion wave to work with. They don't have a lot of health on Bugle Wizard.
Tanky Titan.
But they do have all 5 members. Starry still here to do what they can. Pops that Thorns nice and early, dishing out whatever damage they've got. They don't have a whole lot. They leap in place, and that should be all they've got left in the tank, drawing some attention away. Divine is Zexy Zealot, and down is the Titan for Food Fighters. Your third seed, Fallen Angels, pull off the upset, and they're going to the Deep Sea Finals.
Crazy, and well deserved. So in game number 1, they took 1 Fire Giant, they won the game off it, and then in this game, they took 1 fight around Fire Giant. They knew that they didn't have a strong case for actually taking it. They were posturing for the last 10 minutes around it without ever fully committing to it. So you knew what they wanted to try and do. But I think the Food Fighters were always far too split up. You know, there was a kind of engage onto Twinkle Toes, who actually managed to jump away from both frontliners, and suddenly was zoning both the backliners, using that Bat of Hell and staying alive for a long time. That allowed the Fallen Angels to kill Helenu very, very quickly, and they just won the fight from there because the Food Fighters were so split up. And again, lots of credit goes to Twinkle Toes. Zexy Zealot had a really good showing on the Mammon, even though we never saw Mammon do anything, because she was always just killing people somewhere else in a 1v1. But that's what Mammon does, and the fact is, there are a lot of strong 1v1 characters that they picked, Fallen Angels picked, and the way to deal with that is stay grouped. You know, have the 2 backliners stay together, make sure someone's there to peel for them as well, and that's the key. They were never quite on the same page looking at one target to get that pick that we were talking about from picks and bans. It's a pick-based comp, and they never look to try and do that come those late-game team fights. So that was a bit of a misstep for them, but it's all because of Fallen Angels played really, really well. They played to their comp really nicely, and they were disciplined in what they did. It was really good to see.
Yeah, it was chaos versus control, and the chaos just won out. When you're so spread out, split up the way that Food Fighters were, it was just too easy then, especially in that last fight. I think that was the only fight that went really out of control for Food Fighters, and unfortunately it just spelled the end of the game for them, you know. And it was, like you said, good play from Fallen Angels to recognize their opportunities. They could have easily backed off after that mid lane Phoenix and just gone for the fire, but they didn't. They stuck to their guns. They knew they had the damage, and they end up getting the win in 2. But that means that is it for today. It's been a fast-paced, crazy set that somehow only ends up in 2. But the great news is we will be seeing Fallen Angels in the finals, which is the best of 5. So if we've seen that much chaos from just 2 games, can't wait to see what happens if we get some more. Now, we do not know yet who their opponents will be, and the Fallen Angels will be waiting with bated breath to watch on Monday to see who their finals opponents will be. But I've been Judas Priestley, joined by Zats today, and we've had Raptor and the backside providing all of the visuals. It's been a great game. There's more games on the way later today for Kraken, so get a rest in, get ready, get your snacks up, because there will be time for more action. But that's it from us today. We are signing off.